Hello, I'm Grayson Perry on France 24.
The one thing everyone knows about Grayson Perry, the celebrated British artist and Turner Prize winner, he's a man fond of wearing a dress. Nowadays, his famous alter ego Claire tends only to come out for special occasions, like today, the opening of his first ever solo exhibition in France, Vanity, Identity, Sexuality, at the Monnaie de Paris.
These pictures of 18th century women and women of ideas, I think it fits very well as an introductory piece in this building with its history.
Perry has made himself a household name in Britain by sculpting pots and stitching bold tapestries that grapple with modern social issues. Mischief is one of his biggest motivations. Grayson Perry, hello.
Hello.
In the UK, you are a national treasure.
I've heard.
You have a CBE from the Queen. How would you introduce yourself, though, to a French audience, a French person who might not know your work?
Hello, I'm Grayson Perry. I'm a very successful artist.
I think they might have a few more questions.
Well, let them find it out. I think that on my Twitter feed it says artist, broadcaster, transvestite, likes being on two wheels, lecturer as well, I think I've got in there.
Your work is very autobiographical. Do you think people need to know about you to appreciate the art?
It used to be autobiographical, I think, up until about 2005. Of course, I still crop up in my work. I think any artist, it kind of enriches the experience if you know a bit about where the art is coming from and the story, because we are narrative beings as human beings. We love a story. And an object, if you've got a bit of wood and it's just a bit of wood, but if it's a bit of a true cross, it's a bit of a true cross. I'm a transvestite, so I like to dress up, and it's handy for publicity, but it's not really a super intrinsic part of the art. I use my dressing up as a way of signalling that I'm talking about gender sometimes in the work.
I saw your message on Twitter actually earlier this week that's saying the logistics of being an arty transvestite can be exhausting for packing. Tell us about this get-up then that you've decided to wear for the opening.
You don't think I'd wear this old thing for an opening?
That's just for us.
Yes, because this is a classic, I suppose, like many transvestites when I was young, I thought that, when you find out that you're a transvestite, I started dressing before I knew they existed, and then suddenly you find out that what they do is pretend to be women. And I was like, okay, that's what you do. So you try to look as much like a real woman as possible. So I spent the first sort of 20 years of being a transvestite trying really hard to walk down the street and no one would notice me, because I'd look like a housewife, going out shopping or whatever. And then I suddenly thought, no, this is not working. I want a bit of attention. You
don't want this to be known as your alter ego anymore, though, do you? Because in the past, everyone called you Claire.
It's lazy journalism. I've never actually said it, as far as I know. But that's what they assume. I think because of Marshall Duchamp and other people, they have an act. I'm up front, I use the gents. And you could spot that I'm a man in a dress from a passing helicopter. So it's like, it's not really, I'm not really out to deceive anyone about my gender, I am a man. It sort of demonstrates a lot of the techniques that I use. A pot like this would take a long time. It is a very complex series of decorations.
You started making pots when you were 23. Can you remember the reaction when you got into pottery from people?
The art world had a blind spot around craft, and it was willing to welcome in the exotic other if it was a found object, like Duchamp's urinal or Damien Hirst's shark. That was a kind of bold conceptual gesture. But pots, oh my God, that was like dragging something in from the suburbs. There was something slightly déclassé about it all. And that immediately charged me up about it. I thought, oh, it's got some mileage in here. And the fact that I made very classical looking, I didn't make avant-garde sculptures. I made pots that looked like pots, that were decorative, that you could have in your house. The art world was kind of like, no, we're avant-garde. We do dangerous ideas and difficult political statements. We don't do decorative pots. We didn't. And they were kind of like, a bit like that. You know, and I thought that was interesting. That was an interesting reaction. And that's been part of one of my hobbies is to try and to spot those tender spots all the time. This is like the Tutankhamun's tomb. In centuries to come, people will come into these artworks and it will be like, oh, you mean Britain left the European Union? What stupid ideas they had back in those days.
You travelled around the country speaking to Brexiteers and Remainers to find out what unites us and what divides us. What did you discover? And did you find it hard?
No, because I think one of the big problems is that people don't talk to people who think differently from themselves. I mean, and Twitter and the social media make that even worse. I found Brexit fascinating because it showed a new divide in society that's, you know, that's around different sorts of things than the traditional party or class lines. What the pots, that's why they're called matching pair, is that actually we've got 100 times more similar things with each other than we have different. It's just this one issue. And most people didn't even give a about the EU before the referendum. It's just a kind of symbol of something that people have attached their lightning rod issue, that they've attached a whole series of cultural values to. And the really shocking thing is that the Leave campaign knew that and the Remain campaign didn't understand it. And it's the same thing happened with Trump, is that Trump and the Leave campaign, they understood that culture is upstream of politics.
You've got this new show called Them and Us, where you're talking about some of these issues. What is it exactly? Is it stand-up comedy? What can people expect?
I call it comedy thought leading. You know, it's like a TED Talk, but much better paid. You know, like pottery and like television presenting, I never planned to do these things. I bumbled into them. And the comedy thing would come out of me lecturing to students, you know, and I always thought, well, I'm going to make it entertaining for the students. So I always put in loads of jokes, and then I developed a patter, you know, with the students. And then I started getting more and more show busy to the point now where I play the Palladium and I do, you know, what is a lecture on current sociology, but I kind of do it as a show. And it's fun. And we've got these little voting machines so the audience can vote on issues live. And that's fascinating.
One of the other things you talk about, and we can see the work here, is masculinity. You've written a book about it, you did a TV series about it. You actually say you're quite masculine, which might be surprising to people watching. What is masculinity? What does it mean in 2018?
What masculinity means at any point in history is the set of cultures and behaviours associated with the male sex. End of. You know, that's the sort of definition of it. In 2018, well, we're here in Europe, you know, in the kind of relatively affluent West. So we are in some ways, you know, pushing into a different era of gender at the moment. It's a very hot topic in the media nowadays. Rightly so. I mean, I'm surprised it's taken this long, you know, because when I was at college, feminism was a big thing, and that's where I learned a lot about these issues. And that was 40 years ago, and it's still grinding on, you know, to the Me Too era. I always say that, you know, when the news comes on, the newsreaders should look up and say, sort of go like this and go, and now let's see what men have been up to today. Because most of the big things that are happening in the world, most of the sort of man-made disasters are literally that, man-made. It reflects my change myself. You know, I've had a lot of therapy. So I've gone from warrior, angry young man at the front, wise, all-knowing guru at the back.
You're married to a therapist.
Oh yes.
A woman.
Can't you tell?
Is that something that influences your art? Is art a therapy?
Hugely. It's probably the most influential thing on my life. What's interesting about therapy is it deals with our most interior lens on the world. And so our emotional lens that we look at the world through, you can't look round it. It's not like, oh, I'll just put my emotions over here for 1 minute and then look at this situation without all of my emotional history distorting my vision of it. You have to look through it. So you have to know that emotional history so you can understand the distortions of your vision of the world in relationships, in everything you do. One of the things I really like about therapy is it's quite free. People think of it as airy-fairy, and at a bad end it can be. But good therapy is totally free, and you will not get away with any magical thinking. And so I love applying that lens to politics and sociology and the subjects I do, and kind of I'm asking the question that every people sitting at home in the sofa are going, asking that question, why is he wearing that t-shirt, or whatever it is. And that's exciting because it gives me that ability to calls me out to ask that question that is so loaded but seems quite innocuous.
Okay, I'm going to say a word to you and you tell me your initial thought on it, okay?
Oh God, yeah.
Brexit.
Exciting.
Trump.
Predictable.
Theresa May.
My shoulders are slumping.
Europe.
Europe is, sophisticated.
It's a very high-pitched answer.
Yes, you seem to be strangling yourself by saying that word. Well, it's so loaded now. Europe is Europe and whatever, but now, of course, it has all that tension in it.
The Me Too movement.
About time.
Transgender superheroes.
Ooh, the word lip service came to mind there.
And lastly, vanity.
Okay, we're all vain.
Identity.
Complex.
Sexuality.
It's an engine.
Grayson Perry, thank you very much. Thank you.
You Are Here, your programme spotlighting French heritage.
Versailles, the Louvre, Mont Saint-Michel are well-known stars of French heritage. But French genius and France harbours many other hidden treasures. The arts, gastronomy, architecture, as well as nature's wonders. Come along with France 24, discover France's living heritage. From young apprentices to accomplished craftsmen and farmers, to Michelin star sporting chefs, meet these people whose passion for their professions preserve and drive French heritage.
You Are Here on France 24 and France24.com.